So hey guys, welcome to a different kind of review that I normally don't do on my channel, and that is an entire series review for YouTube Red. As you can tell by the shirt already, if you didn't catch the reference, and if you don't know what it's a reference to that recently came out, that is a reference to the new YouTube Red series Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai is a spin-off series that continues the story of the original three Karate Kid movies. I guess you could say in a way it does also continue the next Karate Kid and the Karate Kid remake with Jaden Smith, although they're not really acknowledged that much, and this story is more so a continuation of those first three Karate Kid movies. So the other ones are still pretty relevant, but it's more so a continuation of those three earlier stories. Um, so let's get to it, guys. I normally don't, like I said, I normally don't do like streaming service series reviews. I almost did one for Stranger Things, but I think I backed out of it at the last minute because I did see season one of that. But I love Karate Kid, as you can tell by the shirt. I've loved the Karate Kid since a very young age. I've watched all the films. I own all the films. And so I was really excited that Cobra Kai was going to continue that story. We get to see where Daniel and Johnny have been over the past 30 years or so, and kind of what they're going to do with future generations of kids who want to learn martial arts and things like that. So let's dive into it. So Cobra Kai, if you've never seen it before, and I'm obvious as usual, I always do non-spoiler reviews. So if you haven't seen Cobra Kai yet, do not worry. Most of the stuff I'm talking about is pretty generalized. It's going to be pretty broad in some areas, but it is things just letting you know what the series is about and kind of things I liked and didn't like about it. And as usual, I'm going to try to explain everything as the best I can without spoiling anything. So if you haven't seen Cobra Kai, do not fear. This is a non-spoiler review, so no spoilers in this review at all, just my overall thoughts on the series since I have viewed all 10 episodes by now. But for the synopsis of the show, you guys, basically, like I said, it's over 30 years since the first Karate Kid movie. Daniel LaRusso is now running a car dealership called LaRusso Luxury Motors or something like that, Luxurious Motors or something along the line of that. And so what he also does is he gives every customer a free bonsai tree. It's pretty clear that Mr. Miyagi in the story has passed away at some point. We do learn a little bit about it in a later episode, but it's pretty clear that Daniel LaRusso, no matter what path he took on, he's basically taking life on by himself in his adult years by now. He has a family. He has a daughter and a son and a wife. Johnny, however, is kind of down in the dumps. He's drinking a lot. He really is just going from job to job, doesn't really keep on to anything. He doesn't really hold on to anything. But he does get the opportunity of a lifetime when he really wants to be able to start Cobra Kai up again since it's long shut down. It's even kicked out of the All Valley tournament. Like the All Valley tournament doesn't want anything to do with them. So he basically has to find a way to get all this money and to basically be able to start up Cobra Kai all over again. And so throughout the YouTube Red series, Daniel and Johnny keep running into each other now in this later part in their life. They clearly haven't seen each other in all this time since they last saw each other in high school and so forth. I want to say this is probably the first time they've encountered each other since Karate Kid Part 2, since the character of Johnny wasn't even in Part 3 at all. So throughout the movie, it's about them kind of Daniel trying to figure out how to shut down Cobra Kai, what to kind of tell Johnny that that's not okay to start that up again, while Johnny's on the side of, starting his life over again and getting Cobra Kai up and going again. And so there's that story with him, and there's the whole story of his perspective on Daniel LaRusso and how Daniel LaRusso was kind of his enemy in high school too. So the series in general plays off of all these elements combined to create a very intriguing twist and turn kind of Karate Kid story for YouTube Red. So overall, guys, I was very impressed with the overall series of Cobra Kai on YouTube Red. As a Karate Kid fan, I was very happy with all the twists and turns it took, all the nostalgic moments it had, all the nods it had, all the philosophy it had with the original Karate Kid movies. It was just a ton of fun to watch. I was just very, very happy as a Karate Kid fan in general. So for my positives and negatives, and like I said, no spoilers, just generalized, broad things I've enjoyed and didn't like about the Cobra Kai series. But for my first and foremost positive about the series, this is a great Karate Kid continuation. After seeing, and actually I'll combine it with my next positive, which is I think it's a smart move that because I think the guys who worked on the Harold and Kumar movies worked on this. I thought it was a smart move for them to do this as a web series. Um, the overall Karate Kid story is so there's just so many things you can do with it, and there's so many directions you can take with this Cobra Kai thing. Now that it's 30 years after the first one, I thought making it a web series was a smart move. So in a way, kind of like how Ralph Macchio pitched the show when he was on the Today Show, I think it was. He said it's kind of like watching a 5-hour movie, but it's broken up into 10 segments. I think that's the best way to describe this. It's basically 10 half-hour segments that feel kind of like a 5-hour movie where you kind of can watch it as your leisure and kind of go back to it whenever you want and so forth, because they do break it up a lot. Um, but I do like how it continues Karate Kid. It introduces us to new characters, continues the characters we know and love. It brings up a lot of characters from the older ones too, like characters from Part 3, characters from Part 2. And it's just a very satisfying way to continue the overall Karate Kid story. And like I said, making it a web series I think was a smart move just because of all the content they had to work with. Another big positive I had was the many homages and flashbacks to the Karate Kid movies. I guess the best, and like I said, this really isn't a spoiler. It's just things you can look for that are actually really, really cool. And while you're watching the Cobra Kai series, they bring back golf and stuff. Um, they bring back certain characters. They bring back certain characters have like cameo appearances, and they bring back the old apartment that Daniel once lived in. There's a episode where they kind of play off of why he's there. There's just all these things and all these lessons that Mr. Miyagi taught him that kind of are shown in flashbacks and so forth that are relevant to what Daniel's currently doing in his life. And I think it's really cool that all these homages and flashbacks do come back for the Karate Kid movies within this YouTube Red series. I also like the overall continuation of Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence. Johnny Lawrence in particular, they really did a lot with him in this. Because it is about Cobra Kai, it's very appropriate to give a lot of attention to him and really kind of see his side of the story and really see why he really wants to make Cobra Kai new and fresh again and bring it into a new generation of martial artists. And it's interesting to see Daniel LaRusso's side of the whole thing of, he's starting this auto dealership. He's bringing bonsai trees into it now that Mr. Miyagi can't take care of those anymore. That he's trying to make a very laid-back, very philosophical, very cultural car dealership within the area that they live in. I think it's a very appropriate choice for Daniel LaRusso. And obviously all the choices they make with Johnny Lawrence I thought were very appropriate to his character. He's still kind of that bully. He's still kind of that mean guy that you remember from the first Karate Kid movie. But there is kind of more of a background to him. We learn a little bit more about his upbringing, some things that he's been up to over the course of the years since the last 3 Karate Kid movies. Or the first 3 Karate Kid movies, I should say. So it's just very interesting and very satisfying how they brought back both of these characters for the Karate Kid series, and to see where they are, and to kind of see how they fit back into the overall Cobra Kai story. I also like all the many new and interesting characters that they introduced to us in Cobra Kai, both Cobra Kai students and non-Cobra Kai students. Probably the most interesting non-Cobra Kai students in the series is Daniel LaRusso's daughter. They do a lot of things with her. There's a lot of twists and turns with her. She gets involved with characters that you wouldn't think she would get involved with. There's characters in here that you would have never imagined from watching the first 3 Karate Kid movies that she would become friends with, or become boyfriend girlfriend with, or how she becomes friends with certain Cobra Kai students, how she doesn't, how she's still kind of against the whole thing, but is still friends with those who were really good people before joining Cobra Kai, and all that stuff is really interesting. They really do kind of twist and turn the story around a lot to bring a fresh, original take on Karate Kid, where Cobra Kai students can be friends with non-Cobra Kai ones, and non-Cobra Kai ones are friends with Cobra Kai ones, and there's still kind of balance and yes and a no to the whole thing of, yes, we accept this, no, we don't accept this kind of a thing. So I was really satisfied with the many and new interesting characters we were introduced to in this Cobra Kai series. There's also a lot of Karate Kid series character cameos. Can't get into too much detail on this, but if you know what Cobra Kai is, who was kind of the big honcho with that back in the day in the first Karate Kid movies, that certain cameo appearance will not surprise you at all, but like I said, I'm not going to say who it is or what it is or when he shows up. Someone close to Daniel in the first 3 movies has a cameo in this movie, in this series too, that I thought was really cool. And they also have archive footage of some other characters that are either not around anymore or would have been too difficult to incorporate into the story. So tons of cameo characters appear in this, specifically characters that were in the Karate Kid movies. So very, very cool. They brought those back. I was very happy with that. I also like how Mr. Miyagi's philosophies from the earlier three Karate Kid movies, the first three, live on in this movie. Even some of the stuff that he probably taught Hilary Swank in the next Karate Kid do as well. A lot of the philosophies that he taught Daniel while he was training him and how to be a good karate student and so forth. I like how they show kind of how Daniel has learned from that and still kind of continues that legacy that Mr. Miyagi put upon him with all these philosophies. Really cool how they incorporate that into the series as well. And this, for the most part, it's a very contained season one. It's I feel like they kind of did everything they could have, while still kind of having just enough leeway for a season two, which I'm very excited that they just previously announced. But it's a very contained season one. I like how they contained a lot of this. And for my negatives, and I know this review is going on for longer than it should, but for some of my negatives with Cobra Kai, I don't have a lot, but I have a few. Sometimes the low budget kind of shows. There's just certain props in certain places where you can tell they just didn't have a lot of money to work with in certain episodes. So for me personally, the low budget does show a little bit in this movie. So there is one side of me that does think maybe a movie would have been more appropriate, make sure that everything works the right way. But they did what they could, but sometimes the low budget in the show does kind of show a little bit. There's an occasional action scene or two with Daniel or Johnny that will happen every once in a while in Cobra Kai that does look like they are a little rusty over the years. Sure, they probably got prepped for this series somehow, but some of the kicks and punches and stuff they do when we do see them do that, it does feel a little rusty with the two of them. So that's one kind of other negative I had. Maybe they could have done what Mark Hamill did with the new Star Wars movies and got a physical trainer and really kind of got prepped to do all this stuff. And Daniel LaRusso does have a son outside of having a daughter. The daughter is very interesting in the series. However, the son is very worthless and very uninteresting, and his jokes do not land in the series for me at all. He just kind of sits around and plays video games and just that's really all he does. So I thought giving Daniel a son was fine, I guess, but give him something more interesting to do than what they did in this. So maybe season two will do that. The Daniel LaRusso son we got in this, like the son that was in this, was just very worthless and uninteresting to me. There's also some occasional misleading previews whenever you end an episode and they try to get you intrigued into the next one. Not necessarily the director's fault, whoever did certain episodes, but for me personally, I feel like there's just enough going on in the series where the series itself is keeping me interested in what's going to happen next. So the little previews at the end, they kind of mislead you when you find out like what they really are about. Like whether it is Daniel or Johnny looking at each other is like, oh, that's really all that was about. So I thought that was kind of a marketing flaw in their end that could have been handled better. There's also some occasional overly raunchy humor that you can definitely tell the people who made Harold and Kumar were a part of this, both in the writing and the directing department. I feel some of it doesn't really work for Karate Kid necessarily because those were PG movies from back in the day. I don't know. Some of the really raunchy stuff just didn't really seem to fit Karate Kid for me whenever they did some of that. So, one little nitpick that I think they could work on with season two, maybe don't make it so raunchy for season two. And overall, when you do get closer to the end of the series, they do try to do a lot of nostalgic things with the All Valley tournament and everything. Some of it's kind of predictable. It's like, really, that's the direction they went in, or oh, they did that again, and all that kind of stuff. So, just something I thought they could have done in the writing department that could have been a little better. But overall, Cobra Kai, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. There's tons of stuff to love about it. As a Karate Kid fan, I was very happy with what I saw. But like I said, there's still a couple negatives with it. I think some of the original three Karate Kid movies are probably some of the better Karate Kid stories we've gotten still. But I'm very happy with that YouTube Red picked this up, pursued this series, let the people who did the Harold and Kumar films do this. I was very happy overall with the series. I can't wait for season two. 9 out of 10 for me. Very good job that they did with Cobra Kai here.